what I wanted to do, and the whole point of this was to talk about the artist journey and talk about people on the journey.
Ooh, okay, I like
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's because the whole point of doing this is to inspire people to start the journey and to empower people on the journey as well, right? So let's talk about your journey.
Oh my God. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. So when did you have a desire to be an artist?
You know what? I actually spoke about this earlier today, which is so wild.
Crazy.
So crazy.
Insane.
So I distinctly remember the moment I locked in my brain that I wanted to not only be an artist, but it was like, this is going to sound corny, but my destiny, or like what I'm meant to be doing. I was in grade 5. My primary school had maybe grade 3, but in primary school, and we were taken to see the Queensland Symphony Orchestra. At that time, like from a really young age, I had a lot of pressure to figure out what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in life because my parents had worked so hard to establish our family here. So I remember going to see this orchestra. I had no clue what an orchestra was. I had no concept as to what I was about to see. And I was sitting in the front of, I think it was the Lyric Theatre or one at Concert Hall maybe. And they were in rehearsal. And we were sitting there, a bunch of like 7-year-olds or, whatever. And I see this man playing a flute. And it was in that moment, it was sort of like an inflection point where I was like, I just so locked in. I was like, what is that? And how do I do that? And from that moment on, I have always known, like, in my soul that I was meant to be a musician. And then obviously I figured out I could sing. And so my like instrument of choice changed. But it was in that moment that I was like, that is my destiny.
Was it a flute that
Yeah.
you wanted? You were like, I got to play that.
I got to play that. Yeah. I mean, like I'd seen violins and things, but it was also just the sound of how it sat in the orchestra and the grace of it. It just looked so beautiful. And I think also just hearing the orchestra, and this is why I love being in a band, just hearing the orchestral sound all together and seeing everyone working together to make music that evokes such visceral emotion. I was like, I need to be a part of that. Ideally playing that silver stick, but I will never forget that memory. It's such a cool memory.
How cool. And then so what happened next? So you saw a flute and you were like, that's it. I need to be some type of musician.
Yeah. So thereafter, I remember getting home and I was like, Mum, I want to play the flute. And she was like, okay, that's very random. We went through the whole process of like figuring out which instruments. So at least the primary school I went to, you got to try all the instruments, and then they were like, it was sort of like in Harry Potter how he tries all the wands and then the wand chooses the wizard. And I was like, I tried like brass instruments, reeded instruments. I don't really like playing reeded instruments. I just like don't feel like I have the brain for it or the mouth shape for it.
Yep.
And then I played the flute and I was like, this is the one. Like, I don't really care what other people think, but I was so adamant. I remember going into that trial and being like, hi, well, I would like to play the flute and I know there are other instruments, but this is what I'd like. And then I got like, they would send out like a whole letter. I got into playing a flute. My dad took me to a music shop and he bought me my first instrument and I literally cried. It was insane. And then I became like so single-minded about learning how to play. I'd practice for like 2 hours every day from grade 5 to grade 8. I was like single-minded about becoming a flautist. And then in that period, I learned how to sing, and then like the intensity for which I was learning flute backed off, and then I started developing my voice and figuring out what that meant, and the rest is history.
Cool. Okay. Sweet. And then, so when did you start becoming a vocalist?
I figured out I could sing. I think it was in primary school, but it was really in grade 8 music. So I moved to high school, and then obviously all your subjects become separate, you know? And so I was doing like music and I got to choose which instrument. I was like, I think I'm going to figure out voice. And I had 2 friends who would play guitar and another girl would sing together. And I remember the first song that I sung, it was Drive by Incubus. And people were like, holy shit, like, you can really sing. And I had no concept of what that would even feel like or look like to get that feedback. And it was so intoxicating for people to be like, wow, you can really sing. I'm like, can I? And then I just continued to work on it, like did music extension, took a break when I was at uni, and then I started getting lessons when I started having like my first full-time job. And then like all this other stuff led to then being a vocalist here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you have the opinion that anyone can be a singer?
I think anyone can sing. I don't think everyone has what it takes to be a singer, like in terms of being a performer or a lyricist. Like obviously mostly everyone can make sound with their vocal cords. So therefore you can learn how to melodically carry a tune. But I don't think everyone has all the things necessary to be a successful singer that will enjoy it as well. So no.
You don't think they can learn that?
No, because there's at least for me, to sing and to perform is super vulnerable. And you have to be constantly able to not only share that, but invite that in from an audience. And unlike any other instrument, like say you're playing a flute or you're playing guitar, like you press that button and you strum that string or whatever, it's going to make that sound. As a vocalist, your whole body is your instrument. If you're tired, if you're sick. So you have to be able to start to learn how to manage that, then also in a performance setting. And it takes so much nerve. And if you're already not predisposed to handle that, I just don't think it's like a sustainable thing for someone to want to do.
Oh, interesting. So you're not necessarily saying everyone can't be a singer because of a skill-based thing, which is what I think most people see vocalists are either talented or they're not talented, right?
Yeah.
But you're seeing it as a point of, are you a person who is, I guess almost in a way, extroverted enough and vulnerable enough to actually want to put yourself out there?
Yes, I agree. And I really hit a crossroads maybe about 2 or 3 years ago where I was singing, but I was not really performing. And I would get such intense like stage fright that I actually got to this point. I was driving to one of the biggest gigs of my life at that point. I was actually getting ready to perform at QPAC, and I was in my car and I was like, you need to decide right now whether or not this is going to be a thing you're going to do. And if it is, you need to like essentially pull your shit together and figure out how to train your brain and enable yourself to be vulnerable enough to do this or not. And you just sing in your shower forever or like not be a performer. And it was in that moment that I figured out how to crush and manage.
That's so interesting.
Scared or fearful.
What had changed? So you'd been fearful before.
Yeah.
Kind of it, yeah.
Very scared.
But you performed you'd performed fearlessly before, I should say, when you were younger.
I think I was always kind of scared. Like playing flute, different.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I started to sing, and this is what I mean by the vulnerability thing, it just seemed to come more from here.
Yep.
And, you can learn to play an instrument. It's a different thing to learn to sing. And then to learn to sing in front of someone, you have to actually control your natural fight or flight response to be able to actually sing well. And so I'd always been, that was always sort of like the thing that held me back, my fear of performance and being in front of people. And then like, it just built to a point where then I was in that scenario where I was like, oh my God, Saro, if you want to do this, you got to decide like literally right now whether or not this is going to be a serious thing for you. Yeah.
And making that decision, what did that look like when you performed at QPAC?
That was the very first time I think I'd experienced like entering flow as a performer. So I remember I was in my car. I actually had to pull over because I was panicking. And I actually oddly looked up on YouTube like ways to beat performance anxiety, and then I watched this short video about like that fear and excitement share the same neural pathways. So you need to essentially like trick yourself into saying you're excited. So you like need to look in the mirror and like actually hype yourself up. So I did that like in my little rear view mirror. And then again when I got to QPAC, and like it took a few goes, so it wasn't like the very first performance, but I remember that was the first time I actually felt like I was in control. I wasn't just like, I'm just going to rely on the talent and skill I have to make sound and hope it's going to sound okay. I actually performed and felt like connected with the other musicians that I was on stage with. And then having experienced that, I was like, okay, this needs to be something that I become really serious about. And I cannot let fear always be right on my heels if I want to be as good as I think I can be.
How interesting. I personally don't think about musicianship. I don't think about fear and how that's tied into musicianship enough.
Okay, tell me more. Like, why? Is that not an experience you've had, or?
Not really. No.
A natural born performer.
Well, I before I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to be an actor. That was my thing. So when I was a kid, and I don't even know necessarily if it was like, I'm trying to think of what inspired me to be an actor, and I can't think of anything specifically. But I did want to, like, I would do drama lessons, and when I was in primary school, I would, like, I would just get around opportunities to be on stage. I was on a TV show. I was on Lab Rats.
Really?
It was just a game show.
I don't remember Lab Rats.
Yeah, I was on Lab Rats. I was a contestant. I won, obviously.
Duh.
And I just had, I would do like these like outside of school drama classes and these performances and stuff. So I really thrived being on stage, which was really funny because I feel like, I don't know, I just always wanted to do that when I was a kid. And I feel like I kind of lost that as I got older for some reason. Like it wasn't, when I was a kid, it was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be on stage. So I entered music, and that was the same. Like it was just getting to the same thing, but I just got to channel it in a different way. And I think I once I found that, I started I didn't want to be an actor anymore. I didn't want to do drama. I just wanted to be a musician. And I think because of that, I'd always, from a young age, had connected that neuro pathway of I was excited. I was never anxious about those things.
So, like, that's so awesome, because back to what you were saying about extroversion and introversion. Like, I think I'm a socially extroverted person.
Yep.
But I can be quite introverted. And so it was sort of like, how do I bring that extroversion and fearlessness to performance? And I think you're quite extroverted. And to have that from such a young age to the point where you're like, I'm going to thrive whilst being on stage, on display in front of people, is such a superpower.
Yeah.
That I think more musicians would benefit from actually doing acting lessons, or, you know, being in like situations where they had to perform without an instrument, because it just so progresses your ability to perform.
It does. And I think that's I was never really nervous to get up on stage ever. Even the biggest shows that we played, where we played like, 1,000 capacity venues, it's just like, oh yeah, sweet. Like I was more nervous about fucking up an opportunity to get to play another show rather than and doing it. Was the nerves were of ruining the brand reputation more than nerves of like, am I going to play the song properly, or am I going to put on a good show or not? Or am I like, because where's the fear come from?
That's a good question. For me, it was not thinking I was good enough.
Yep.
And feeling a little bit imposter syndrome-y, like
The fear of failure?
Fear of failure. And a fear of embarrassment, like the shame of being like,
Getting kicked out of the tribe.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And I never really, thankfully, had to deal with that fear that much. So what would you be doing if you weren't a musician?
I don't even know, because I think gone to great lengths to explore everything, well, a lot of other things outside of being a musician. So I didn't study music at uni. I did something else. I did science. I have had a whole career as a scientist. I've been a barista. I've tried all these different aspects and avenues of things that I enjoy or I'm good at. And it's always come back to music. And so I've kind of just accepted in myself that I can try and like redirect myself, but my North Star always like magnetizes back to true north, which is music for me. So now that I've like accepted that, I actually can't imagine what else could drive me the way being a musician does. I think I could do other things in the creative arts. Like I like producing, like I actually like bringing projects together. I like directing things.
Yeah.
I do modeling on the side, which is fun, and I like being artistic in that sort of sense. But music is always home base. And if I, heaven forbid, couldn't sing, I'd probably just pursue being a flautist more seriously. But even in that, it's always singing. Like that's always where I come back to.
So if someone were to ask you, what do you do? What would you say?
Oh,
Someone you've never met before. They're like, what do you do?
I would say, okay, so my job is as a designer. So I usually do the two I'm like, I'm a musician and then I'm a designer.
Yeah.
Or I just say I'm a creative. And then if they're interested enough, they will. But that's a good point because I never always just say, oh, I'm a singer. Like, that's just, it's a big part of who I am, but I never seem to lead with that, which I never thought about.
Yeah, there you go. I think about it all the time because when I catch myself telling people what I do, and I'll often, when I'm feeling confident with music and with the path that I'm going on as a musician, I'm a musician. Will be the first thing that I say.
Okay.
But on the contrary, when things aren't going well and people ask, it's like, what do you do? Oh, I do sales. I run a business.
Yeah, I'm a business owner.
But
We did just it.
yeah, I think it's because, again, we want a fear of failure, fear of going, oh, I do this, and then checking it out and then being like, oh, that's embarrassing. Right?
So cold. But yeah, I agree. And I think like, if I'm being honest with myself, I want to be taken seriously. And so I often lead with my profession that pays my bills because it sounds like legit. Like when people are like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a designer. I'm helping to build a museum. Oh, I work for a not-for-profit. Like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Or, before it was like, oh, I'm a geologist. And people will be like, oh, okay. But anytime I've taken the risk to be like, I'm a musician, they're like, oh, okay. So what industry? It just doesn't seem to hold as much weight. I'm like,
It's also,
should think.
yeah, people, I do find that you tell people you're a musician and it's kind of embarrassing to tell people you're a musician.
And I don't want to consistently associate being a musician with this weird sense of shame because it's a legitimate thing. And so when it's almost like that dynamic, it changes. They're like, oh, it's like telling people like, oh, I just dream for a living. Like, it's a thing. Like, everyone listens to music. I'm just another person that does that. So yeah, now I think I'm going to try and change that because the biggest part of what I value is being a musician. So why not lead with that?
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is. There definitely is. I don't know if it's just because I've had the same conversation over and over again. But definitely leading with musician, you definitely get I don't know, maybe it's internal though too. Maybe it's my own self-worth and my own perception going, you're not good enough. You're like, what are you telling people you're a musician for? You shouldn't be saying that. That's not what you're not going to be good enough to succeed doing that, blah, 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 whatever that thought is. But yeah, it feels like when you tell people that, you're expecting to get pity from them, right?
I don't want that.
Yeah. I don't want like, oh, awesome. What's your band called?
Yeah,
Awesome.
cute.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like telling people you own a dog. They're like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a dog mum. Oh my God, that's so cute. It's exactly the same. Telling people you're a musician. It does. It feels that way.
It does.
So
Oh, that's an insight. Okay.
that is an insight.
Things to ponder.
Sucks. Anyway. Oh, well, this is just a podcast for things to other insights on why being a musician can be hard.
Challenging.
So so you started your journey, right? You've gone, I'm starting on the journey. This is a good one. What is the best thing or the best bit of advice you've ever been given by a mentor?
Oh my good God. That is such an excellent question. I think one of the most pivotal pieces of advice, this would have been from my high school music extension teacher, Mr. Watkins. I was 17. And I remember after graduation, like you go through this whole thing, and he pulled me aside from memory and was like, you essentially really need to believe in yourself. Like, the path ahead of you could be so great if you actually believe that you're good enough to walk it. And if you don't, you won't get there. So it was like, it's not a matter of skill. Like, obviously there's luck and other factors.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of skill or being able to continuously develop that or talent. It's my Achilles heel has always been in my self-belief. And if I don't master that, this path that I could go down won't exist, and it will be entirely my own fault. And I was like, oh shit. It was so raw, and I was like, okay. And it really like resonated, because at that time I was still like, oh, performing is so scary. And, you know, I just didn't think, and for a long time, and even sometimes now, there's always that little voice like, are you really a good singer? Like, do people just say, oh, that sounded good because they like you or don't want to hurt your feelings? And even those strangers, like, we had an experience like in the last 24 hours where people are like, oh my gosh, you guys are so great. And I'm just like, are you lying to me right now? Like,
You just walked across the room to come over and make me feel like shit. Why did you do that? Why'd you come over and just
down?
Yeah, why'd you come in and tell me I'm really good from across the room just to make me doubt myself?
And when you say it like that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Because, like, no one has that kind of confidence to just walk up to someone, unless you're like, you know, special. But no one's walking up to someone and being like, no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one's walking up to you like from across the room and being like, yo, you're shit. Like,
Yeah.
huh?
So yeah. Imagine that. Imagine someone just walking over to you to all like a snake, yelling, I'm gonna lie to him and I'm gonna tell him that really good. Yeah.
And
all right. And they come over. That was such a good set. That was incredible. And then
like, think about how much courage it takes for yourself, I'm speaking on my own behalf, to compliment someone else. Like, I've objectively gone up to another person and just complimented like their outfit, and it actually took, like, I was kind of nervous to be like, oh, this random stranger, I'm just gonna be like, hey, I really like your jeans. And it gives me such a weird thrill. But even in that courage to go up to someone to compliment them, it takes effort.
So, crazy thing that you just said before,
Mm.
the not believing in yourself. Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like you have done that? Because 13 years later,
Yeah.
13 years later, had you succeeded or failed at doing that?
I think, Zach, I think I am now starting to truly succeed. I think it's not as binary, at least for me, for like failure or success. It's sort of been like, have I believed in myself this whole time? No, but I am more, and now I'm starting to see more success because I'm doing so. Does that make sense?
It does. So what was a moment or what happened for you to actually implement that and living with belief and believing that you can be good?
That's a great question. What happened? That's such a great question. I think it was actually a culmination of a few things. And I'd started taking music seriously. And then in the span of, I'm going to say, I went from knowing I wanted to sing and taking lessons to joining Obscure Orchestra. Seeing Obscure Orchestra, being like, I want to join that. 6 months later, I was in. Don't even know. It just kind of materialized. Getting to a point with the covers band I'm in, Midnight Sound Machine, and we started just like locking in. And then coming to sing here. It all happened in such quick succession that it felt like I was here. And then all of a sudden, like, opportunity and like level of performance just went, and all of a sudden I'd gone from like, singing at a friend's wedding maybe, to like, I'm performing at Woodford. My first performance as a professional musician was at Woodford.
Yeah.
And then I'd seen what was Patient Lounge back then, and I was like, holy fuck, how do I get to be a part of that? And then that happened. And then Midnight Sound Machine just like got to this stage where it just worked. And all of the stuff it felt not overnight, but it was just like all this work I think I've been putting into my self-belief just started to tick over. And then the opportunities I was getting were just like astronomically different. And it was wild. And it was in that sort of like year where I was like, the main difference maker isn't the quality of my voice, because I've been having lessons for a long time and singing for a long time. It was me believing that I could do it and figuring out how to just be brave. And
You were finally brave enough.
Yeah.
To actually
honestly. Yeah. To ask the question, sing something that I would have been too scared to sing, and then it sounds good, or just courage to be like, I would like to do that. And then believing that I was worth it once I got it.
It's cool, right? Because it's a courage mixed with momentum.
Yeah.
Because you need the courage to do it, and then all of a sudden you're just hitting those milestones, and before you know it, you're growing and leveling up, and then it's a flywheel and just starts spinning faster and faster, right?
Yeah. And at every moment where it was a new milestone, it was another little test of my courage. Because it was like, it's not like, I did a courage injection once and then I was like, I'm just laughing. It was like, okay, and this is the next thing. Are you going to rise to meet it? And at any point I could have said no and exited that flywheel, but I had to continuously put myself out of my comfort zone and say yes to the scenario. And then here we are.
And there you go. Confidence, and you're being an artist. You can now tell people you're a singer.
I do.
Yeah. Awesome. And so what was your question?
My question for you, I guess, is, I mean, you spoke earlier about moving from acting to being a musician. What was that inflection point, or why did you believe that music was that artistry outlet for you, even though you'd already had been acting for some time?
I've got this super clear, the same way you've got that flute story, I've got this clear image of me in like a dressing gown when I was like 8 years old. Had like, I was all cozy in my, I was all cozy in my dressing gown, and I was sitting we had a DVD room growing up, luxurious, but it's just a room with a projector and a couch, but Dad had the projector and then just these monster speakers, right? So just had this awesome stereo, and I've got this. I remembered watching like AC/DC's music videos. I had this DVD that was just a collection of all of AC/DC's music videos, and I would put that on and I'd just sit there and just watch it. And I was just mesmerized to the point that there was one day, I was pretty young. I must have been, it was like primary school. So I must have been somewhere between that 6 to 10 mark. And I remember, like, I came home. I think I was home alone for some reason. And actually, no, I wasn't. Mum was there because I cranked the music super, super loud. And Dad had like this massive, like framed bit of memorabilia of like, I think it was like a signed Muhammad Ali boxing glove. And I was just mesmerized by AC/DC, listening to it at full volume. That like this big thing just shook off the wall and
No.
smashed it. But I was just like, I just loved it. I loved it. And watching Angus Young, I was just like, nah, I've got to play guitar.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I didn't initially want to be a vocalist. I didn't really want to be a singer. I wanted to be a guitarist. And my parents made me play piano, and I was like, okay, I was playing piano with the goal of getting a guitar at one point. So I was like, that was my gateway for me to get the instrument that I wanted. But I just saw people play guitar, and I just got, I was just obsessed with it.
I so resonate with that. And then how did you figure out you could sing? 'Cause that's...
Yeah, I was in school choirs and stuff, and I didn't really have confidence as a singer for ages. Growing up, I would always be a guitarist, and I would always think that, like, my high school band and that kind of thing, I never thought I was good enough to sing. I would always ask other people to sing in the projects and stuff that I was doing. And that's the thing. I genuinely didn't think I was a good singer for a really long time. I've got very cool memories of me singing, and like family members being like, yeah, maybe you should just stick to guitar.
What?
Yeah. I've got this, I remember my grandfather telling me that. So like, yeah, I've got cool memories of, you're not good enough as a singer, so don't be a singer. Right. And I had to basically, overcome that and when I got to university, I started actually singing, and I kind of found my voice a little bit more, and found like that if I sing with, vocal fry and do a mix of things, I found my unique voice.
Yes.
And I found something that makes me kind of not really sound like anyone else.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's where I started getting compliments on how I sounded, and I started building momentum from there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But I've got cool memories of not being good enough as a vocalist that I still am using as, I guess, fuel to really drive me to just keep getting better.
Interesting. That's so cool. I mean, like, that you can utilize that as fuel, because I don't have a similar, like, my experience as a vocalist from the moment I started singing, people were like, oh, damn, like, you should pursue that more. And I was like, why? And so it's almost like the opposite experience. Like, I was told by other people, oh, you should really think about singing more. And in the back of my brain, I was like, they're lying to you. You're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah, mine was the opposite.
I'm so sorry.
You're not very good. I can be one day. Yeah, so the opposite, and I guess that's probably why I don't get imposter syndrome as much with it either.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm not good enough inside, because I've had the world tell me I'm not good enough. So, like, yeah, imposter syndrome just doesn't exist. There's not this like, oh, you're good enough. No, I'm not good enough. Like, I know I'm not good enough, and I know everyone thinks I'm not good enough. I'm just going to keep trying.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Wow. That is... that's so mind-bending for me. But I feel like I now understand you as a musician and as a songwriter more hearing that. Because I had no clue that was your experience.
Yeah.
And... like, when I talk about imposter syndrome, like, some people get it, but some people, like, they're like, I've just never had that. I'm like, how? And then hearing that story, I'm like, oh, that's literally how. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I guess, why I've always just been so driven and have to, like, just keep, like, very much like work is like a grind. Music's always been a bit of a grind for me, because I've always wanted to do it. I've just got to work really hard to get to where I want to get.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put in the work, and as long as I just put in the work, I'll get better. I had a realization. When was it? A couple years ago. I was watching. It was New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like about to click on 3 years. And at the time, I wasn't really putting effort into getting any better at guitar. I wasn't putting effort into getting any better at singing. I was just kind of plateauing. we were, it was just after COVID. So we were coming through, it was a year after COVID. So we kind of had peaked as Patient Lounge. We'd played our awesome shows and we were kind of not really doing anything cool. Everything was kind of a backward step. And I remember watching Led Zeppelin on acid. And I just had this realization of the only reason this music is good is because they're good musicians.
Yeah.
If I just get better as a musician, I will write better music. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, that just felt like this crazy insight that I'd never, it's probably the acid. But at the time, I was like, holy shit, like, what am I doing? Not getting lessons, not like actively trying to get better. I hadn't tried getting better at all since I left like music uni. Yeah. So I was like, I need to, if I want to be a great musician, I need to practice and I need to put in the work. I need to put the energy to become a better musician because it's not just going to happen on its own. And then from that made me like, I got better from there.
Yeah. What awesome drive. Because I think there's a general perception that to make it as a musician is just almost like luck or like some weird mysterious concoction of things that come together. And then all of a sudden you're, rich and famous and all these things. But all of the greatest musicians and bands objectively are there because of the time they've spent on their instrument.
Absolutely.
And there's other things like we've spoken about, like your network pushing you forward, being interesting and all these kind of things, having all of that kind of stuff aligns, yes. But nothing is going to propel you further than actually being able to play the living hell out of.
Absolutely. There's also the Nirvana myth, right? Okay. So when I was growing up, I was told that Nirvana and bands like Nirvana, thought theorists, like you get this idea of you don't want to learn theory because theory will take away the musicianship and the edge and it'll stop you from being as creative if you know theory. And that's just bullshit. Like it's just a massive lie. Like you look at, especially with Nirvana, because Nirvana, I don't even know why this is a thing, but there's this energy around it that like they don't try that hard. It all kind of sounds a little crap. They don't really care too much about their instruments, blah, blah, blah. But none of that's true. Like Nirvana, they were good at theory. They understood how music worked and they worked harder than everyone else. If you actually look into how they grew, they would rehearse like every single day for hours every single day and they would just grow and learn as much as they could. And super, super different to like super different to what my opinion was of how and my perception of what it was like to be an artist.
I think I've like in a small way had that same sort of experience. Like being a flautist, my understanding of chords and that sort of aspect of theory was non-existent because I played a melodic instrument. Like it was just single note. I can't play a chord on a flute essentially. So I just never really paid attention to that. And then I learnt to sing by hearing other songs and imitation. And then I got lessons to improve my technique. So it wasn't like classical voice where you're reading notation and learning to sing that way. And then I joined, bands like this one, and the theory and the understanding of technically what was happening felt so out of reach that it was like I just moved from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. Yeah, I was like, oh my, there is this whole chasm of stuff I don't know. And in order for me to really have a better handle of my voice and my instrument and express in the ways that I want in this context, I got to upskill my theory quick, smart. And that was just such a, this perception like, oh, you can just sing and it's just going to be a vibe. Absolutely got squashed.
Okay, and this is where I want to go next, right? So you're on the journey. It really sounds, to be honest, like your journey's just beginning.
Yes, it has. I so fully believe that. I feel like I have just been coasting in the ordinary world for a really long time, and now it's sort of like I've clocked in on like, oh, this is the path I'm meant to take.
Yeah.
I'm taking it seriously. So yeah, I feel like I'm just at the start. I haven't even like found the magic that is going to really elevate me.
How cool. Yeah, because I feel kind of, I'd felt recently like the opposite.
Oh, tell me more.
And I think, like, I just, it's kind of what I was explaining to you guys last night, right? And why I felt so good after last night. Because I felt like every kind of step since, because again, we had this project, we had this peak, like, and not even like a major peak, but it still peaked quite quickly. And things got better and better really, really quickly. And then it kind of dropped off pretty quick. And everything that we were doing, it felt like we were trying to chase that high again. And we were doing these things, we were doing these adaptations, but everything we were doing did feel like a backward step. So everything, like getting other people in to replace other people and never really getting anyone that could replace those people anyway, mixing it up and trying new things, but then it was just kind of changed, like it was changing everything. And even though we were doing cooler things, and I think we still sold the most tickets that we'd sold to a live show, we still like, we weren't, the bar had been set here and we were getting further and further away from that bar. So to have an experience like last night where we had to play a secret show, we didn't tell anyone we were going to perform, and we just rock up and we play the song and we go, oh, this is actually pretty cool. We can start a new if this is the start of a new project, this is super exciting. Because it's like, it's for the first time ever, it actually felt like treating it like it is a new project and treating it like we're not just trying to chase this high, but there's another mountain over here that we can climb instead. That's super exciting. It is exciting because it does feel like the journey's just beginning. If one journey's coming to an end, then another journey begins.
Always.
And I think that's super exciting. So and that has been quite terrifying for me and frustrating for the last 2 years, to just feel like I'm getting further and further away from what had always been my goal and my dream, and what I kind of spent since graduating, since literally the last couple of years at school, and that goal and getting close to it and seeing it could be a reality. That was the biggest thing. I was close enough that it was like, oh, I could actually do this. This could actually be my life. I could become full-time musician, playing my own music. I can see it in the crosshairs. It exists. It is there. And then everything kind of fell backwards and got further and further away. So that was super terrifying and frustrating. And I guess frustrating is the best word for it, because it's one of those things that the harder you try, the further away it gets, right? What has been the most terrifying thing for you as a musician?
It would be songwriting as a solo artist, and then starting to put my own stories and experiences into songwriting without the comfort or the safety of other people in a collective. So now I've had some experience songwriting with Patient or this project, and I found that to be still very vulnerable but manageable. And then it was when I got the opportunity to start to step into what is Saro as a solo artist, I found that so incredibly terrifying. I love performing. I love singing. I find songwriting from my own experiences the most terrifying thing. Maybe it's like some vulnerability work I need to do, but it's almost like it makes me feel physically ill. And I've been hounded about this. Like, I've released 2 songs as Saro, and they were okay. Like, they were literally like maybe the first 3 or 4 songs I'd ever written, and then I had the opportunity to just record and produce them. I was like, okay, cool, chuck them on Spotify, whatever. And I have performed those songs a lot when I'm asked to do solo stuff, but stepping out on my own, I find so mind-bendingly frightening. And that is the hill I need to figure out how to, that mountain that I need to climb that's my next sort of journey.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I want to get even more specific. So what would you say is the darkest moment that you've had as a musician?
Oh my gosh.
Or in life.
Or in life. Whoa, okay. Well, I think so I think they're tied together. So interestingly, earlier today I did another interview about my artistry, and the question was, when has music saved your life? I know.
You did another one of these?
I did another one.
What do you mean?
I know.
Feel 30 seconds.
But now I'm ready to go. My brain's on.
Yeah, sure.
And so I think that's warmed up. Yeah, right. And so this has already been in my brain, but maybe just before COVID, I went through a really hard breakup of my relationship.
Yeah.
And it was so unexpected, on, and it just changed so much about for a long time, my personality and my ability to just function. And I, as a musician, I hadn't really gotten to this stage where things were starting to spiral upwards, but it so made me question my worth, not just as as a person, yes, but if I couldn't even handle the ups and downs of a relationship coming together and falling apart, how on earth was I meant to channel that into art that I would feel comfortable making and that people would want to indulge in? And it really shook, earlier you asked me, what's my North Star, being a singer. It shook that for me. It almost broke it, because I was I have no concept of what I'm supposed to, how do I trust, if I can't trust my ability to gauge someone else, how can I trust my ability to trust myself and what I want? It really really fucked with me for such a long time. And and it took such a long time for me to dig myself back out of, I think that was probably the lowest experience of my life. And I had to kind of reform what it meant, what was important for me, because at that time, nothing I did, when you go through a breakup and they're do the things that you love and that used to interest you, and nothing would. I was just hollow. And I don't even think I listened to music. I was just not functioning. And so I had to really put in so much work and effort to rebuild and fortify my self-worth, but my belief in myself. And so now, and I think that's why I find songwriting so terrifying, because before I can write about anything else, little crash. Before I can write about anything else, I know I have to write about those experiences. And they were some of the darkest experiences I've ever had. And yes, my family and my friends are there to an extent, but I dug myself out of that. And it was terrifying. And yeah, I know I have to write music about that, and that makes me obviously quite scared.
Yeah. I'm so, what about going through that emotionally affected your self-worth as an artist?
I think it was this layered thing of I'd never been tested in whether or not I could believe, whether or not I trusted what I thought was correct. It's sort of oh, Zach, do you like peanut butter? Yes, I like peanut butter. And you'd never question that. It's just a core belief you have, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So I never questioned my ability to make the right decisions, or to figure out what I liked or disliked, or what I could trust or not trust. I lost my ability to trust my own decision making. And so I saw the dissolution of that relationship for a long time as a failure to trust my own ability to gauge someone and whether or not they were being truthful to me or loved me and all this other stuff. So then when it came to me as an artist, I really it really shook my ability to trust whether or not I was good enough or this was something I even enjoyed doing, or if it, like every aspect of my ability to trust my decision-making process just kind of like fell away.
That's crazy. Is that because there were things said about you or?
Yeah, it was things like.
I just find it crazy how much it destroyed your belief in yourself.
I think it's, this relationship deteriorated because like epic betrayal.
Yeah.
And I just was so blindsided by it.
Yeah.
Like I was living what I thought was my best life. And then all of a sudden it was like, they're saying like the rug is pulled out from underneath you. That was quite literally when I found out that
the rug was missing.
It was missing. And it was gone. I was like, what the fuck are these tiles? I'm like,
didn't know there were tiles there.
oh, but when I did discovered that, like all this stuff was not what I thought it was. Like I remember that moment and it felt physically like my brain just fractured. Like I was so incensed. I was so upset and so angry. And then it just kind of like, like there's the 7 stages of grief of like rejection, anger, blah, blah, blah. I just short-circuited straight to sad and like, I guess, rejection of it. And so like it took me so long to move through the other stages of like later I became super angry, and I was probably angry for like genuinely like 2 years up until, I don't know, like end of last year. Well, but like, yeah, so it just, I think because I was so not expecting that, and I thought everything was like in this wonderful bubble and my life is progressing, and I could see clearly like a future with this person, but also a future where I was like pursuing all the things I wanted and growing this life that I wanted, which included becoming the artist I thought I was meant to become. And so when that important piece shattered, it just like rippled out into everything else, and I was like, what the fuckity fuck am I supposed to fucking do? And it was not a vibe.
So because your belief in the relationship was destroyed, your belief in your future in every other part of your life was, that's crazy.
It was crazy. And I think it wasn't necessarily like my belief in that relationship. It was my belief in trusting that relationship. Because at no point had I questioned it. Not really. And like I'd had little like, oh, is this the right thing? But I just put that down to like nerves of, but I had never questioned me believing that. And so then when it comes to like, do you believe that you could be a good musician? It's that same, like, I don't know, because if I can't assess something as, something as basic as whether or not you can meet someone and be like, oh, I like you, I love you, let's do this thing. How on earth am I supposed to trust?
Well,
that's how that manifested.
That is the connection.
That was the connection.
That is crazy.
Yeah. I don't actually know if I'd made that connection up until now.
It's crazy. Oh, you're welcome.
Why am I going to go to therapy? I should just use...
Do we just keep chatting? I'd make you a good therapist. Great band name.
Yeah. Great band name.
Great band. Maybe we could do patient lounge when you go to see a therapist. Yeah.
I see the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so your just belief in, that is insane.
It was insane. You know what though, as crazy as it was, and I can only now say this, I can only say this now because I've had some time and distance and like a lot of work. I am grateful for it. Because I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone through that. And although it was like objectively, I don't think I'd actually had to grieve something before.
Yeah.
And now I know what my grief response is. And also like, that was such a, oh my goodness. That was such a crucible of like intense like growth and emotions and stuff. I now feel like nothing can push me back to that place. Yeah. I don't feel like, touch wood, hopefully, but I just feel like it just built this level of resilience that I just didn't have before. And also just knowing a bit more what my boundaries are. And also knowing like, okay, if I'm ever in that position again, like I know the sequence through which, and also can flag out like, okay, you don't need to shatter your whole self-worth as an artist because some dumb boy messes with you. Like,
Yeah. Thanks for making me a fighter.
exactly. Thank you, Christina. I literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So would you say in hindsight, obviously it shattered everything at the time, would you say you're a better artist now because of that?
Yes. And I think that will materialize more as we all write together and as I write as a solo act as well. But I would not be able to do what I did without that shitty experience. It has made me 100%. I don't even know if I'd be sitting here as Saro artist. I don't know if I'd be sitting here as Saro the artist if I hadn't gone through that. I don't actually think I would even have met any of you because it just so altered my life trajectory from doing this and starting a business, doing other things and thinking about music to like, I'm hard pivoting into pursuing now what I think is the right thing, my North Star.
How cool. How cool. So you feel like more connection there.
Yeah.
That's very, very good. Nice. Cool. So what's next?
What's next? Well, it's the end of the year. Determined for myself that next year is a year of such single-minded focus for me.
Which is
on being the best musician I can be.
cool.
Exclusively, I mean, unless Beyonce calls in and is like, hey, would you like to be a backing vocalist for me or something? Exclusively in this project, named TBD, Saro. And that's it. Like, okay. I'm fortunate that things in some of the other projects that I'm doing are backing off, like with Midnight Sandwich. We had Obscure Orchestra, we're taking a hiatus. So now I have actual time and space as creative to not be like pulled in all these other directions, which have been great because I've learned a lot. But now I'm just like, what are we doing in this project together? And what am I doing as a solo act? And that's it. So my goal is for this time next year to have written and be ready to release or have released my own EP, to have released the music we've created and starting to get in the gigs and the places where we get to really share what we've made and progressing myself to being the artist that I think I'm meant to be.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. So 2024, here we come.
Yeah, 2020.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. You're a year out of a year. Can you imagine if we just snapped back to, oh my God.
But imagine that though, like if I was like, oh my God, I just lost it. It's been hit a lot.
Well, I can ask you the same question. So we're now at the end of the year. What's next for you in your artist journey? Especially considering the experience we just had.
I really hope the end of the frustration is over.
Yeah.
I want to put an end to frustration. Well, actually, I like being frustrated, but I just want that next tier. I want to feel like I've evolved. And I think my realization has become it's time to stop trying to be something else and become like just evolve and become that next evolution. And although it might feel like going, like, I just don't think I can take another back. Like, I think trying to push another thing, there's just no more backward steps to take. Like, whereas going all in on a new project and going, okay, cool, we're gonna do this and it's gonna be fun and it's gonna be fresh and it's gonna be new and there's gonna be new faces and it's going to like just give people something new. And it's at the end of the day, like, we have been putting so much energy into getting better, and I've become a better musician as well. I'm much better than I was 2 years ago. So the art that's going to come out is going to be much better due to, according to the law that I made up when I was cooking. So the law of the only thing that makes great artists great, the thing that makes great musicians great is being a great musician. The thing that makes a great song is written by great musicians.
Yes, fully agree.
That's it. It's it doesn't exist without that. personally don't believe that you can have it without the other. So that's my opinion.
Love it.
And the idea is, if I just double down on creating great art and great music, that if I just keep doing that, we'll evolve and it'll just get better and better. As long as I keep focusing on on becoming a better artist, the art will always get better.
I could not agree more. I'm very excited for this new project. Clean slate.
The War of Art.
The War of Art.
I think that I like it.
I like it. It's
It's growing on you.
Yeah.
It's growing on you. I think it works.
Yeah. There was something about last night and afterwards, I think maybe it was you. It was like, oh, that was our first thing as War of Art. And it just clicked in my brain. I was like, okay.
Yeah, you were like, oh,
Challenge accepted.
yeah. So yeah, let's go. Yeah, I wanna do this. I wanna make sure. I wanna. The theme of my year is I want to get really good at this and meet more of the right people.
Yes.
That's it. Meet more of the right people, impress more of the right people, and get our music and our art in front of them. Because if we can do that, I really feel like there's been different hurdles and different challenges throughout our journey. Yeah. Challenge 1 was we didn't know who we were. And it took years to work that out. It took so long to work out who we are as an artist and what we represent and what we stand for. There was so many years of us not having any idea of what that was. We thought it was we just make good music, and that's just not in at all. That just doesn't work. So we went, okay, cool. What the thing that we're passionate about, and from the story that, you know, the thing I'm passionate about as an artist is pushing through on the grind and becoming better and leveling up. So you can become a great artist, create good art, and then sing about the emotions that are true to you and things that you actually feel, so you can communicate that and you can make good art to help other people understand and feel how you feel. And yeah, that's the whole point of that, is write music on the artist's journey. So, and inspire people to start that journey.
I love that.
And that became very clearly, that's who we are. And then that's what we're super passionate about. Just so happens Stephen Pressfield did exactly that in a different domain.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's okay, cool. Or now that we know who we are and we've nailed that hurdle, we've got the right personnel and we've got people that are all passionate about that. Then the next hurdle was we wrote a bunch of music and we had to create a bunch of art that represented that. So we've got the brand, and we know who we are now.
Yeah.
We have the art and we have the personnel. So the only thing left is getting it out. Is getting it connected to people. And the way to do that is we need connectors. We need people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need people who go, oh, you got to check these guys out. Yeah. How you're feeling, that's all they write their music about. They got, like, it doesn't matter who you are, what your journey is, but if you're on the journey, and you need to check these guys out because they represent that. Their music is about that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That is such a clear framing. Yeah.
Yeah. Right people, right product, right brand. That's the three things people need to love to buy when it comes to sales. Is, do they love you? Do they love the brand? And do they love the product? That's it.
3 out of 3.
Yeah. Well, at least we like each other.
That's all that matters, to be honest.
It is all that matters, and that's it.
People who love you will find their way to you.
Exactly, 100%. So the only thing we're missing is people who can help us connect, people who can help us find our tribe, because social media is a great avenue to try and do that. An even better avenue is people.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use the technology route, or you can use the
connection,
the actual human connection route, and that's our two options.
Yeah, and we're doing both.
Absolutely.
So It's only a matter of time.
Absolutely. So yeah,
Exciting.
let's get it. Let's get it. And yeah, sure.
Cool.
Oh, thank you.
That was great.
That was great.